Hello everyone, and welcome to another webinar presented by Page One Power. My name is Mike Bryant and I'm happy to be with you today, but most of all I'm very thankful for everybody that's taken time out of their busy day to join us here for this presentation. We are broadcasting live from Boise, Idaho. It's the world headquarters for Page One Power, and we are in the thick of the fall season. Although it's a little warm today, it's beautiful outside, and if you're in the area, stop by, give us a call, and say hi. That is myself. You can follow me on Twitter at MichaelRO22SS, and be sure to join in the extended conversation today and after the webinar using the hashtag P1PWebinar. We've got our content team that is live tweeting today, and they will assist in answering additional questions. And so if there's anything that we can't get to live here on the broadcast, feel free to submit that and ask questions as you go along. Our presenter is in-house, and he is Norm Bogley, and he's one of our expert link builders. An SEO specialist at Page One Power for 2 years,
Yeah,
a little over
on 2 years here.
Well, welcome, Norm. Happy to have you with us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We want to get an idea of what our audience background is and what their role is in SEO. So we're going to push out a quick poll, and we'll post those results so everybody else can see, kind of what best describes your role in SEO or digital marketing. So take a moment, answer the question there appropriately, and I'll post the results so we can see, what makes up the majority of today's audience. And in the meantime, take a look at your control panel here on GoToWebinar. Make note of where the questions tab is. So anytime throughout the presentation, feel free to put in a question, submit that to us. If it is pertinent to the conversation, we will stop right there where we're at and answer that question and address it appropriately. Others we will save until the end, because after Norm's presentation we will do a live Q&A session. And so submit your questions as we go along, write them down, but we'd love to hear from you live during the broadcast. So I'll just let that poll go for just a moment longer, and I'll close that, and we will get started with our presentation. Looks like we've got about 74% of you have submitted so far. Just a few more if you want to let us know what your background is. I'll close that in 3, 2, 1. And now let's see what the results are. And it looks like the majority, 56%, are working in-house in the SEO role or as a digital marketer. And the second most would be from marketing agency. But we appreciate everybody that's here today, and so let's get started. So Norm, do you want to roll through our goals for today's broadcast?
Absolutely, Mike, and thanks again for having me. Thanks everyone who's either tuning in live or possibly watching this after the fact. We appreciate you both. My presentation is loosely adapted from how I approach new hires, the way that I take new recruits, new link builders that are actually going to start working in production at Page One Power. I introduce them to either an actual client or a potential client. I walk them through my process and just talk philosophically, if not strategically, because just as everyone watching, every client we serve, every industry that's out there, you all have your own unique challenges, your own unique opportunities, and your own questions. So this is really more about making sure this is relevant to you than just showing off what has worked for me, although there's going to be a combination there. So I'm explaining our approach. At Page One Power, we have a really diverse staff in production, lots of different backgrounds, lots of different skill sets, and that means a great diversity of approaches to link building. There's not one recipe for link building that works 100% of the time. It's a discussion, it's an organic process. So I'm going to highlight part of our approach, but there's almost infinite different tools that you could potentially use. So this is a little bit of a snapshot, but it's mostly going to be philosophical. What is the principle behind Page One Power's link building? And that principle is our number 2 goal, putting humans first. Hopefully by the time you're done watching today and I'm done talking today, you'll understand what that means, why humans always come first. You know, the internet is a technical marvel, and Google employs robots that do all this crawling. Humans are at the core of everything that the internet is and everything that link building is supposed to be. And so I'm going to emphasize that over and over and over because it's just that important. And of course, just as if I were being shadowed by a new hire, I want to answer your questions. I'm sure I can talk about link building all day because that's what I do all day. But to make sure that it's actually relevant to you and helping you solve problems or manage challenges or whatever it is that you're trying to get out of this, this is live. This is for you. This is an opportunity for you to ask a full-time link builder whatever burning questions you have or anything that comes up organically as I go through this. So that's the number 1 goal, is really answering your questions. So Mike is going to be here. He's going to kind of help me keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, I'm going to launch right into this. I don't know if you guys know who Carl Sagan is. He's a really big name in the astrophysics world, but he has this great, really philosophical quote that I find is incredibly relevant to how we approach link building. He says, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. And it sounds really high level, and it kind of is, but what that really means is everything is connected. Did you grow the apples? Did you grow the wheat from which you extract the flour? And the reason that's relevant to link building is actually really straightforward. Before you can build a hyperlink, you must build a conceptual link, by which I mean understand what you're talking about. You have these different industries. Everybody has a website these days, but they all have different needs. They're satisfying different consumer questions or user questions. That's what Google is doing, right? It's answering questions. It's helping people solve problems. And if you want to do that fluently from a link building perspective, you need to do it fluently from whatever your niche is, whatever that industry is. If you're going to talk about football, you need to be able to speak the language of football. If you're going to talk about cars, you need to be able to speak the language of cars. So once you've put in the time to understand what the conceptual links are that make this product, this service, this website, whatever makes that a destination online, then you understand how to link to it. The whole nature of SEO is not to promote something, but to help people access something. This sounds really high level, but it's really that simple. The assumption behind all SEO is someone is looking for this. And what we want to do is make sure they're finding the best answer and make sure that our clients are being the best answer when we do search engine optimization for them. So we need to understand, what are our clients? What is this website? What are their challenges? And how can we make sure that they're optimized to be the answer to all the different people and interest groups and queries that are going to drive search? So what I'm going to do today is take just some websites I happen to know. These are not clients. We have no interest to disclose, no conflict of interest to disclose. There's just a couple websites that I've discovered in my own time that kind of exemplify the conceptual link building that occurs before you build hyperlinks. So first website here is Core Point Health. I chose this site specifically because it's in the healthcare world. That's a big world. We're all patients at some point. Not many of us actually work in medicine, especially if you work in SEO. You probably didn't switch from being a pediatrician to come be a link builder. It's not usually how that trajectory works. But there's a lot of different clients and websites and service providers that work in the healthcare world. So how does someone with no medical background do link building for a healthcare site? That's a real challenge that we have to solve every day here at Page One Power. And so, you know, there's a lot of tools that you can use as a link builder or as someone who works in SEO to answer technical questions like, all right, what are their keyword needs? What's their niche? You know, how are we going to optimize their website? And you can look at the HTML and, you know, do a lot of technical stuff, and you can get really bogged down in sheets and exporting these giant spreadsheets of keywords. But when it comes to human-oriented link building, I like to kind of put all that in a secondary place and just look at this as a user, someone who's actually going to come to this website. And so one of the first things I want to know about this client, which I'm going to approach as if I were going to link build for this client, is what problem are they solving? What kind of searches are going to drive someone to this website? They have a very bright, friendly website here, and the first menu option immediately next to their brand name here is products, which is incredibly helpful for me because I need to know what their product is. Is it a service? Is it a physical product? So immediately I click over to their product page. This is actually an incredibly helpful product page, even though it looks really, really bare bones. Because from my link builder SEO perspective, I'm looking at keywords without even doing a keyword search. Data interoperability for hospitals. So that's a service and that's a customer, just in that one incomplete sentence right there. And when they say for hospitals, radiology, labs, and clinics, I have a broad understanding of what that means, right? I don't work in a hospital. I'm not a radiologist, but I'm already kind of visualizing who is the person I need to be able to speak to when I'm doing my link building work. And this applies whether you're doing a technical link building campaign or what is more my specialty, which is a more content-oriented link building campaign. In either case, you need to be able to speak this language. And this isn't just about speaking the language of the actual searchers, but this is being able to speak the language of the people who will actually build the links. Link builder is almost a misnomer because we're not going out and taking over other people's websites and constructing the actual hyperlink on their websites. We're usually asking for that to be done by other website owners, right? If I'm going to talk to people who have websites in the healthcare industry, who work with data interoperability or who are purchasers for hospitals, and they run these websites, I need to be able to reach them where they live and where they work and point out that my hypothetical client here, CorePoint Health, they're worth linking to. And I have to be able to communicate that fluently if I stand any chance of actually getting that link built. So again, we've got data interoperability. There's a product. Integration engine. All right, that's technical. There's some kind of computer wizardry here. I don't really understand what it means yet, but I'm starting to learn certain important keywords. So now that I have a very, very superficial sense of what the solutions being offered are and to whom they are being offered, I can start to look at what on this website is worth linking to. Because again, SEO is not in the business of promotion. We're not advertising for this client, right? Advertising is telling people what they want. SEO is about helping people find something they're already looking for. We want to make sure that we are the answer to their pre-existing question. So when you want to build links, you want to link to something that moves them along the funnel to understand your client and to learn more about your client or your website if you're in-house, which I guess most of you are. So immediately I'm looking at their resources and trying to think, what's going to be the most broadly relevant asset on this website to which I can easily and repeatedly build links? Because it's easiest when it's relevant to a lot of people. It's easiest to build links when that link is providing a human service. Someone's going to click on this and they're going to learn something. They're going to click on the links that I'm building and they're going to find problems being solved. That's the goal behind link building. And blogs are great. Everyone should have a blog. Everyone should update their blog. They have white papers. That's going to be more technical. They have customer stories. But most importantly, they have a glossary. Now, looking at the customer stories, I learned more of what I learned at the product side, right? These guys are all hospitals. These are all people who work in either a large hospital group or a smaller area like radiology. But the glossary is a lot more exciting to me because not only is it educational for me, but by extension, it's educational for anyone working in any of these operations. Anyone who's a potential client for this client. Anyone who's a potential customer or a potential partner or, incidentally, a competitor from whom I can also learn all manner of interesting things. This glossary is like striking gold for a link builder because it's just such an organic, helpful thing to link to. Any conversation I want to have on a blog or any outreach I want to do to a site owner, if I can fluently use these acronyms or some of these words, these ideas, Commonwealth Health Alliance, conformance checking, direct project, there's all these terms, these high-level terms. If I can learn to integrate these in a natural way, then instead of, oh, I'm suspicious of this email I'm getting from someone asking for a link, this is the language that I'm used to working in. This seems organic, and they say they have something that might be useful for me. Good. That's half the battle in getting a link is getting those emails open, getting that outreach to actually land in front of human eyeballs so that they'll actually consider building those links. So I'm learning something, but I'm also seeing linking opportunities where I'm going to be able to link to this glossary, to these terms. And I can do that regardless of whatever else I find on this website. I already know I can build links to this, and it'll be easy because it's helpful. Now, there's a lot of different tools that you can use, and there's a variety of tools that we do use at Page One Power. But because I want to keep this on the real human side, the real kind of philosophical, basic comprehension side, the one tool that I want to kind of highlight here is Sem Rush. And Sem Rush is good for a lot of things. It can tell you information about where your traffic is coming from, which keywords your website is already ranking for, how competitive those keywords are, and a multitude of other things, including looking at your backlink profile. So what I'm doing with our pretend client here, CorePoint Health, is I'm just putting their website into Sem Rush, which I should also disclose, this is you get the most use out of this if you subscribe to it, so it is a paid tool. But what I would do with our subscription here is put in the website and just look at what are their current keyword ranks. What are they ranking for, and of the things they're ranking for, which is giving them the most traffic? And you can sort this by a lot of different things. But mostly I'm looking at keyword rank, that is to say, in a Google search, in a search result, which term are they going to rank the highest for? Where do they rank relative to the other results for that search? And what's the volume for that search term? Right at the top, CorePoint, brand name. You like to see that. A brand will tend to want to rank for its own name in a search. But that's not always the most organic way that people are going to find you, especially if they're looking for a solution. If they already know about you, then they might be rediscovering you, and that's where a brand search might come from. But more broadly, they're going to be searching for a pain point, a tension that they're managing. And the one that I see just on this very, very almost superficial top-level search through Sem Rush, HL7. And there's a lot of permutations of this. It's amended by a lot of other modifiers. But HL7 is the important word here. Now, as someone who works in SEO, you might think that my immediate response to this is, well, I have to Google HL7, right? I could go to the glossary and look up HL7 here. But part of what I like to do is, you hear about killing two birds with one stone, right? Accomplishing two things with one thrust of effort. I think you can actually kill a lot more than two birds with one stone when you're doing this initial examination of your website for SEO purposes. And one of the best, it's kind of a tool, I guess, it's more of a social network for accomplishing that, is Twitter. So rather than plugging the keyword HL7 into another SEO tool or examining that further through Sem Rush or even Googling it, I look up that keyword in Twitter. And the beautiful thing about Twitter is it's free. I happen to be using Mike's login here, but you don't even have to be logged into Twitter to access this exact same result. And then I want to do several things at once as I explore this keyword through Twitter. First of all, I'm looking for other keywords, which Twitter is friendly enough to highlight by hashtagging them. So I understand kind of the keyword network that exists on social media. I just saw a question come in a minute ago. What about Majestic instead of Sem Rush? I love Majestic. I especially love Majestic for looking at backlinks. I like the way that Sem Rush presents its keyword data. If we click back over there real quick, this is just so efficient for me to understand what we're ranking for, how it's ranking the volume. It's more of a personal preference thing than anything else. Majestic is good for a lot of other things. Majestic is good for telling you what your niche is, what Google thinks your niche is. Are you in computer science? Are you in healthcare? Whatever. I definitely endorse Majestic, but my habit as a link builder is to go to Sem Rush first because look at these pretty pictures. It's incredibly user-friendly and incredibly straightforward, and I can get a lot of data without really having to click through more pages. You know, Majestic gives you a lot more options to compartmentalize data. But for my purposes, what I'm actually trying to do is just find a few quick keywords that resonate with what's on my client homepage or your website homepage, and then go directly to Twitter. And the reason, as I was saying, that I like Twitter is you can accomplish a lot at the same time. So looking at accounts, I'm going to see a couple different things here. One is influencers. These are people who are using the language that I want to learn how to use. They're working in the industry that my client, or if you're in-house, your actual employer, they're in the same industry as you. It might be adjacent, right? Healthcare is a big industry. My mock client here, they're just solving one problem in the whole spectrum of healthcare. So there's a lot of interaction. You know it's going to be a big social group. So I want to start being a part of that. Literally, I will, if I were doing this for an actual client, I'd start following these people. I especially appreciate that the first result for this keyword HL7 International, official page. This is the organization that is the basis for the name HL7. I definitely want to follow them. And if you wanted to use Majestic or Sem Rush, you might go ahead and follow that through to their homepage and backlink that. And immediately you're going to see linking opportunities and other educational opportunities as well as networking opportunities. Over here we have HL7 News. This is a social group. They're a news website. That might give me an opportunity to link build as well. It's certainly going to be a platform for me learning more, and it's going to be, again, a platform for me to find potential competitors, potential clients for our pretend website core point here. All the things that you really want to have a comprehensive, user-friendly, human, user-centric approach to your SEO. And as I'm going through this, I'm going to follow everyone who catches my eye, everyone who seems like an important influencer. I see an individual who's using the hashtag. I'm going to follow the other hashtags that they're using, and I'm going to follow that. You can do this for hours, and at the same time that I'm doing this on Twitter, almost every site that has a Twitter account is going to have a Facebook account. Almost every user who's active on Twitter is also going to have a Facebook account. So I'd go ahead and I'd log into Facebook and I'd start following those people too. And one of the great things about doing this on Twitter is, in some ways, Twitter is more dynamic than Google because it's user-centric, right? It's a social network. It's not just a tool. It's a platform where people connect. So you can come back to this day after day, week after week, meet new people, discover new conversations, get involved in different groups. And it's important to me to be socially involved with the community where my website and my client exist, because that opens up link building opportunities that you can't necessarily find by running a keyword report or doing, really broad, high-level tool-centric search, research, outreach, whatever. It's much more personable. And I mean, I can give you tons of examples from my own experience, even in this healthcare niche, of I follow people and then they follow me back. And automatically I get an automatic message saying, oh, thanks for the follow, reach out to me and let's talk about whatever you're interested in. Let's talk about this hashtag that made you follow me. And that's a conversation starter. I can ask them questions that I have. I might be able to ask for a link. They might turn me on to a whole different blog network that I might not have known to search for otherwise. It escalates very organically and very rapidly when you start engaging with these people. And the beautiful thing about Twitter too is you can filter your search by accounts. So you're not just seeing the tweets that use the hashtags anymore. You're finding the most active accounts, individuals, organizations, whatever, that exist within your niche, your industry, your keyword funnel. You follow all these people. You follow some of the people that they're following if it appears relevant. So I'm seeing a question here. Curious about the term human-centric approach to SEO. What does that mean? Isn't all SEO based on reaching out and asking for links from real people? Emphatically, I can tell you the answer is yes, absolutely. Somehow not everyone thinks of it this way. Not everyone approaches it this way. And people will often see tools as a shortcut for not being human-centric. I repeat human-centric a lot because we just had the Penguin update, right? Penguin has just been integrated into the Google core algorithm. Penguin is actually a very straightforward thing to understand. Links are at the heart of the Google algorithm. They're at the heart of how Google finds websites and decides which one should appear in what order in any search page, right? So part of that is quantity and part of that is quality. And historically, people emphasized quantity at the expense of quality. And all that really means is they were trying to get as many links as possible in lots of mass link building campaigns without actually stopping to look at whether it looked natural, whether it served an actual human purpose. Is anyone actually going to click on this link? And if they do, are they going to be satisfied with the page that it takes them to? For a lot of the sites that suffered what we call a penalty under Penguin, the answer was no. These aren't good links. There's a lot of them, and it artificially makes your website look like people want to connect to it and find value there, but it doesn't actually reflect any human value. So if you're in the SEO industry and you're hearing all this discussion blow up about Penguin, it's really just Google trying its best to take another back to basics approach to say, no, you can't game the system. If you're not solving real human needs and real human questions and providing a human service, you're not going to rank, and you can't get around that. You have to do something helpful to people. And that's what I'm talking about when I say a human-centric approach to SEO. Yeah, it's intrinsically humanistic, if you will. It's all about connecting people so that you can connect websites that people can then access and learn from and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it seems obvious, but people either don't understand that some of the time, or they deliberately try to ignore that aspect so that they can automate, mass link building campaigns, automated outreach where you just send the same form email out to as many websites as you can find and just hope for the best. We don't really use that approach here at Page One Power because it's not very human focused, is it? People want personalization in their emails. They want the links that you're suggesting to serve their needs before they serve your needs. Obviously, you want the link, but why do they want to build that link to your website? If you can't answer that question in your outreach email, why even ask them to build the link for you? That's not a service to them or to the visitors to their website. So yeah, it seems obvious. People like to take shortcuts, and because scale does matter, Penguin isn't about anti-scale, it's just about doing scale with quality. And because scale still matters and you need a multitude of links, it can be tempting. I can understand how it would be tempting to take shortcuts, but you shouldn't do that. And that's really all there is to it, and that's all that there is to the Penguin integration in Google's core algorithm. They want to be able to responsively acknowledge when people are earning links organically and meaningfully, and they want to be able to recognize when people are building links that exist exclusively for SEO and serve no additional human value to connect the World Wide Web. That's all that's going on there. And as long as you keep that in mind in your link building and you go, what are my connections? What are the conceptual links between my website and the rest of the world? You're going to build quality links, and you really don't have to worry too much about Penguin because you're earning the links that you're getting. They make sense. People are going to click on them, and they're going to be satisfied with the experience that they have clicking through those links. I have a question about what I meant about the Twitter piece that I linked to. All I'm talking about with Twitter is educating yourself. You're learning about the language that you're going to use for your outreach. You're learning about the network of websites and the interconnected universe of websites to whom your website is relevant. So using my example of Core Point Health, I'm going to click through what I know they're ranking for to understand who uses this term, what websites use this term, what blogs use this term. Can I get links on any of the above? Who are my competitors? And I can then backlink my competitors and those blogs and all these different websites that I'm discovering. And when I say backlink, I mean look at their link profile and see who is linking to them. And as I mentioned before, Sem Rush is a really resilient tool for that. Majestic is also my personal favorite for doing a quick high-level backlink. There's a lot of other options out there, and you're welcome to use whatever you're comfortable with. But when you discover who's linking to this website, whether it's a competitor or someone who's just blogging about your industry, that's a linking opportunity. And if it's not a linking opportunity, it's a learning opportunity. None of this can possibly be a waste of time because you're learning as you're going. You're expanding your network of language, of conceptual links, of the people, the industries, everything that makes your client relevant to the internet. And when you understand that, you understand how to make your client relevant to Google. And that's what you're really trying to do. Someone says they're a fan of RFs. That's a good one. That's not one that I use a lot. It comes up a lot. You know, it's all personal preference. There's a lot of ways to go about this. I just had a question come up about clients without linkable assets. I'm actually headed right there. So my first example is healthcare. Really, really high-level stuff, right? Really, really impenetrable. And they happened to recognize that, and they created this glossary. It's a great linkable asset. They have a blog, but the quality of the glossary is enough that I don't feel like I need to look at the blog immediately. My next example is this website. I happen to know it's a new website, and I'll show you how in a second. It's called winwinfantasy.com. The concept here is instead of gambling through fantasy football, you support charities. So existing business, you know, there's a lot of fantasy websites out there you can pool. Not that we endorse that, but you can gamble illegally, and now in some states you can gamble legally by joining these leagues. Excuse me, this company said, well, that's an interesting concept, but what if you were supporting a charity instead of supporting your own pocketbook? All right, that's fun. So that's who we're working with. Not that this is an actual client, that's just the nature of the website that we're examining. very quickly, again, doing this domain overview through Sem Rush for winwinfantasy.com, there's no paid search. They're not advertising through Google to get traffic. They have ostensibly 0 backlinks. Now, that's probably not true. In fact, I know that's not true, but Sem Rush isn't detecting those backlinks at this time. And without even clicking through to any deeper pages on Sem Rush's report for this domain, I can see a couple challenges that we're going to have. They're not ranking for what would appear to be relevant keywords, especially that brand keyword. Well, their brand is a common expression, win-win. It's going to be perhaps not impossible, but extremely difficult to get them to rank for a figure of speech, especially one that I also happen to know is a brand name for other companies in completely other fields. You've got win-win as 2 words, win-win kind of as 1 word, win-win hyphenated, win-win with all these other modifiers. So I know right there that's going to be an incredible challenge for this client. Because they're a new website, I also happen to know they have very little content here, and most of it is promotional, which makes it difficult to link to. So to answer that previous question that popped up, how do you link to a client that doesn't have linkable assets? Part of that has to do with your relationship with your website. Supposedly, what do we have? 56% of you are in-house. Unfortunately, SEO often gets siloed from other operations in a company, and that's incredibly challenging. If you want to be a real revolutionary, if you want to go full Spartacus, you can try to change that. You can try to break out of your silo and say, no, I need to work with the broader marketing department. I need to work with our website developers and come up with some content ideas that represent, I would say, your industry before your particular client or your particular brand. Because when you can just talk fluently about the industry in which you work, it makes you more relevant than if you just talk about yourself. It's kind of the same rule as you might find in a Toastmasters seminar. You're more interesting if you take an interest in other people than if you just talk about yourself. The same goes for linkable assets. If you're going to talk about fantasy football, you probably want to talk about what's going on in the NFL more than you just promote, hey, we're do-gooders, we're supporting charities. It might be true and it might be a nice story, but you want to go high level before you really dive into, I want to get links for this little nuanced aspect of what my company does and what our industry is. And sure enough, if I plug into Twitter, looking at Win-Win Fantasy's Twitter, they don't even have fantasy in their Twitter handle. So there's a little disconnect between ranking for the brand and ranking for something else, right? They have very few followers. It's a very new website. So what I'm going to search for is fantasy football, because that's the broader niche in which Win-Win Fantasy is going to be operating. They're competing with other fantasy football websites, networks, platforms, etc. It's not necessarily a zero-sum game, but this is the world that I need to become fluent in. Some of you might think that's easier than others. I watch football versus I don't watch football. As far as I'm concerned, it comes to the same thing as serving this healthcare client for CorePoint Health. No matter how fluent you think you are in the language of that group, that industry, there's more that you can learn. And the more that you learn about the dynamic conversations that are actually happening on Twitter, the people who are influencing those conversations at NFL Fantasy, obviously someone I want to follow. I want to know, what are they talking about? What's happening? What's the news? And you can sort your Twitter search results by what's happening live. You can also look at these specific accounts and find out who tweets the most versus someone who, say, create an account because you have to be on Twitter. It's this obligatory thing now. And learn who is actually active, who's actually advancing the conversation, as opposed to who's just here populating Twitter. And when you follow the right people and you engage with the right people, and it's easy to tell who those right people are because they're enthusiastic, they're active, they're on Twitter a lot, you learn a lot very quickly. And I know that fantasy football is something that there's going to be a lot of blogs about. There's going to be a lot of individual users who are excited about fantasy football, or they're going to talk about their league, or they're trying to start a league. They're going to talk about their teams. These are all linking opportunities for us, even without having a particular linkable asset in mind. Just the nature of my client, knowing that this theoretical client is a charity, that happens to be a great way to leverage yourself into a conversation about that industry. That's not a substitute for having linkable assets, but what you would probably want to do to create linkable assets for this client is find out who's participating in this. If you look at their homepage right here, they have links coming in from Fox, Forbes, Yahoo, AT&T. They've been written up. This is a startup. I happen to have a little bit of background about them. Most of it you can learn by actually clicking on their About page. But it was started by a former NFL player. So intrinsic to his business model is the social network that founding CEO and former NFL player has. And that's how he's getting players to sponsor different charities and raise awareness and convince people that they should support these players' charities. That's a linking opportunity right there. All the charities that are being supported should probably be linking back to this to encourage people to support them, right? So interviews with the players who are participating would make great linkable assets on here because no one else is doing that. And their charities are great linking opportunities because, like the name suggests, it's win-win, right? So the social aspect leads to linking opportunities in almost a more robust way at times than doing a very technical run a keyword report, do some automated outreach. When you do it organically, you discover things organically. You discover who the people who are moving information, who are moving clicks, who are moving followers, who those people are. You reach them, you express your interest. And being ignorant about the industry is a learning opportunity. It doesn't mean you have to be a fake and say, oh yeah, I know all about fantasy football, please give me this link. Documenting your journey learning about an industry is a really honest, human way to communicate with people, to outreach people, and to earn links. What about a pure e-commerce site with thousands? Okay. So this is another challenge that we've definitely run into at Page One Power. What do you do with a pure e-commerce site where they don't have linkable assets so much as they have product pages? The approach doesn't change. I can tell you that right off the bat. There's a product page for my Core Point Health. There doesn't appear to be a product page for this, but you can imagine, if it's something where it's like someone's own private Amazon, where everything is a product page, how do you build links for that? You start at the same place. What are these products? Who are they selling these products to? Who's going to search for these things? If you're selling shoes, like say you're Zappos and you're selling shoes, also not a client of ours, and just for full disclosure, but say you're selling shoes, you find out where in the world your website exists in this universe of shoe sellers. You go on Twitter, you find out, is anyone talking about this brand? Is anyone talking about other brands? How is Chuck Taylor trending on Twitter? And you just find out where do these people live? Where does the conversation live? And through that, you can find opportunities where people may actually want to link to your product, not as a promotional thing, not as a sales funnel thing, but just as here's a product that fits my conversation. You see this very organically on lots of blogs. It may not understand, it may not be immediately transparent to you, that's what's going on, that they're just linking to product pages to make a point and not in a promotional way because it's not your product, so you're not looking for it. But it happens every day, and as long as it makes sense and as long as it answers some question. Question is, what are you talking about? Oh, I'm talking about these shoes. You can link to the product, and it makes perfect sense, especially if you're creating the content, you're writing the blog, not on your website or your client website, but on a shoe enthusiast website, if we're going to continue with this example. Make your product a relevant example of a conversation that's occurring, and the link to your product is a relevant link that isn't going to get tagged by Penguin in the new algorithm update. It's not necessarily going to get stripped by a site owner. It's just organic. It makes sense. All right, we got a really long question here. Let me see. Auto repair shop, still building our site, adding informational pages about repair and service, and trying to get a blog page going. What would you recommend? Top 2 or 3 methods for attracting the attention of established high-value influencers. Got a little bit of what you said regarding Twitter. Definitely not a pro at Twitter. Twitter is not a complicated tool. I think that there's been a lot of people who are self-promotional and they write books about how to become a Twitter expert. There is no Twitter expert. You use it in a way that serves your uses and helps answer your questions. It's a social platform. So all you really want to do is find out, you're an auto repair shop, so you probably want to follow like car bloggers, right? You're part of the automobile conversation. You're part of that universe. So follow people who are enthusiastic about cars. You might even follow some financial bloggers and financial influencers because house is the most expensive purchase the average person will make in their lifetime. Car is usually number 2. So acknowledging that you're part of that spectrum of user experiences, of human experiences, and engaging with those people and talking about how you help that process, how you make sure that buying a car doesn't become more expensive by having to maintain that car because we work with you. We provide customer service, whatever your hook is. That's a very organic thing to do. So with Twitter, it's just finding people who are related to you conceptually and then making that link tangible by following one another and connecting with one another. And even if you're not trying to network professionally, you're gonna network in terms of the content of your blog and your industry and your services, and it's going to help you find out how to talk about your services in the way that people appreciate most. Who else is talking about car repair? Probably the one of the top bloggers in car repair doesn't sell car repair services. It might be a classic car enthusiast who has to work with different repair shops to get obscure parts or to solve problems about, I bought this really, this old Model T and they don't make the parts anymore, and I don't know any mechanics who have worked on one in living memory. I'm trying to solve problems. There's no conflict of interest there, but by interacting with them, you make yourself relevant to this whole other world, and that will attract higher value influencers as you requested. When people see that you're engaging in these conversations in a non-self-promotional way, but just leveraging your expertise, your niche knowledge, you become valuable. And when you become valuable, you become an influencer yourself. It's a process. It takes time. It's not an overnight thing. But again, it all just comes back to who can I serve? Whose questions can I answer? And how can I answer those? And so if you're blogging about that as well, like I said, start high level. Don't start with, well, we can repair your brakes. Talk about why brakes need repaired at all, how they wear down. Talk about things that are universal, and then work your way down to more nuanced subjects from there. And the more relevant you are starting out, the more links you can organically earn. And that's something that we try to tell all our clients is, if you can speak generally about your product or your service, you become more relevant and you earn links more organically. And you give us something more that we can leverage to build links for you.
Norm, I'm going to jump in here real quick. We've got 10 minutes remaining, and the questions are coming through fantastic. We appreciate everybody submitting, so we're going to continue on with some live Q&A, and so please feel free, and thank you for joining us today once again, and we appreciate y'all being here. The questions have been great so far, so we'll do our best to get to the ones that are remaining, and for any of those that we're unable to get to live on the air, we will reach out to you directly. And also remember, you can submit additional questions on Twitter using the hashtag P1PWebinar. So before we get to our final questions, I do want to send out one final poll to the audience. Just want to get an idea of what you might be interested in learning more about. And so take some time, fill in the answer there to the poll question, and we'll get right back into these questions. They keep coming in, and it's fantastic to see all the different industries you guys represent and the big variety that is there, all with the common problem of getting links to your websites to increase that organic traffic. Just a few more seconds on the poll, and I'll close that out. Thank you for participating there, and I'll close that in 3, 2, 1. Appreciate that. And so, Norm, take it away back to these final questions.
I am going to try my best to get to all these questions. If I don't get to them, please email us. Please continue to engage with us. We have a limited amount of time for the webinar, but we're always here. And as a link builder, I love these conversations, and I love to get specific. You know, there's a lot of different approaches that work for different clients and different industries. So trying to keep everything really general can be a challenge, which is why I keep on saying be human-centric. But if you have more particular questions about, well, my client is more challenging, or my industry is more challenging, I can definitely dive into that. I see one question that just popped up. Please give an example of how to approach people to request a link without looking fake. Not to be dismissive or anything, but don't be fake. You won't look fake if you're being sincere. And I don't mean to be flippant about that. What I mean is, again, if your link can actually help answer a question or help another website serve their users, their audience, their visitors, that's not a fake request. Yeah, it's somewhat self-serving to suggest a link. But as long as it's not just self-serving, it's also a service to the person you're approaching, it's not that difficult to highlight that. The secondary value add of a link is the value you get for your website for SEO purposes. But if you put the value add that your link provides to the linking website, to the one building the link for you, as long as that's front of mind and front of conversation in your email, I don't, as a link builder, that's how I format my outreach. I open with, I want to do this thing, and it involves you publishing something on your website, but it's valuable to you or your users or something to do with that website. And when I open with that, I get really good results because people are immediately, rather than questioning my motives, they're going, well, your motives happen to align with my interests. And then we have a relationship right off the bat. And that's the first email that I send is, here's this thing I think I can do for you. What do you think? There's nothing fake about that if the value add is real. And so worrying about looking fake is something that we kind of try to train out of people. If you're coming from a sales environment, I know it can be really, your inclination can be, okay, people are suspicious of me. I'm cold calling, I'm cold emailing. They don't want to hear what I have to say. They do if you have value. And the value isn't you can save money by spending some today. The value is here's information that already exists on the web. Here's content. Here's some page that exists online, and it's going to be helpful to the people visiting your website, and here's how. There's no There's no financial transaction there. You're just sharing information. Links are the architecture of the web. Penguin has gotten some people very alarmist about links. That's a reactionary attitude to have, I have to say. It's not going to help you or your users or your SEO or anyone else online if you're stingy about links. Link where it's relevant, and you don't really have to worry about anything else. As long as it's relevant, it's solving real questions, it's helping people, you're solid. How do you use Twitter to get links? A lot of different ways. You can use Twitter to find people or websites that you might outreach. You can use Twitter to find communities in which you can network, which will then lead you to places that you can outreach. You can find the most trafficked website in keyword, whatever it is you're searching on Twitter, and you can backlink that and find people that you can outreach. And yes, you can contact people on Twitter. It's the same as writing an email to a site owner and asking for a link. You connect with them on Twitter. You can private message them if they follow you back. If they don't, you can tweet at them. Hopefully you're getting followers as you're following people so that you can do the private message. That's my preferred method. And then it's the same ask. You say, hey, you're doing this blog or you have this website. I think this is valuable to you, and it's the same conversation from there. Yeah, it's not difficult at all to connect with people on Twitter. It's social, it's very casual, it's very dynamic. Do not be intimidated by Twitter. It's one of the easiest tools in the world to learn. You can always learn more, but the barrier to entry is very, very low. You have an email address, you have hopefully a profile picture, go nuts. Have you had any luck pitching media sites, Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, etc.? Any insights? They tend to be a little bit more reluctant to kind of let anyone come as you are and write your content and do this and that. My insight would be provide good content. When you're coming to a higher level media site, you usually, as a link builder, you want to have a really robust profile of content. With these kinds of sites, we're generally talking about content building links, although resource links are also possible, but my area of expertise would be content. And yeah, I have had luck, and many other people in our organization have also had luck pitching content to major media websites and major brand name websites. And what it really amounts to is the same thing that any other freelance writer would want to do, which is build a body of work, show that you can speak fluently on these different topics, these different ideas, things that are in the news, things that people are curious about. And once you can do that, you're of interest to these websites because that's the exact service that they're attempting to provide. If you can help them provide that, then it's not that difficult of a pitch. It might take some persistence to get your outreach noticed because there's a large volume of outreach to these kinds of content media websites. So it's a combination of persistence and competence, really. If you can create valuable content, it's a matter of time before they want your content. And that's really all I have to say about that. Different websites will have more specific guidelines for how to get in touch, but it's not actually as difficult as you might think because, again, if your interests align, there's no conflict of interest. So make sure that your interests at least appear to align. You're going to speak to these things, and it's just like any other form of link building. Will this be recorded and republished? Yes, we're recording this. We're going to post it to our YouTube. I think that we're going to send out an email with everyone who attended so that you get the link to the recorded webinar in your inbox. So if you missed the first half, you're in luck. You can catch up. What else? Link pruning advice. Uh-oh. So here's a big question. We get a steady stream of links from spammy sites, often created by a Google search result page, keyword, anchor text. Okay, so someone's talking about earning or being afflicted by the exact kind of links that you might presume The Penguin algorithm is designed to, as we say, penalize you for. That is, sites that provide no human service, no value, and for some reason they're linking to you. How can we prune those? And do you worry about these kinds of links? Oh, I'm glad you asked that. For the most part, no, because that's kind of just a part of being online. There's all kinds of spammy, dark web, greasy back alley kind of sites that for whatever reason are going to find you and link to you. It happens to me. It happens to a lot of our clients. Most of the time, it's not a problem. Again, part of the nature of Penguin is trying to tilt the scales back in favor of quality when they were previously tilted too far towards quantity. And it's when those really spammy links become disproportionate that we would really start to worry. If you feel like you're in that situation and you do need to go out and actively prune these links, there's too many out there. Maybe someone's running a negative link building campaign against you, which I should say, yes, it's a real thing. No, it's not very often cost effective. And yes, you can mitigate it to an extent. In some cases, you can outreach these sites and say, please stop. And I think that's officially Google's opinion on the matter. They are a little unsympathetic to it, even though it's often not your fault as a webmaster. Failing that, you can go through a process to disavow. We're kind of getting into the weeds of technical SEO and technical link building campaigns there. If you want to email us, we can certainly talk to you more about that. But my more high-level answer is you probably don't need to worry too much about pruning links. I think that your energy and your effort are going to be much better utilized by focusing on earning the links that you deserve and getting quality links. Any backlink profile is going to have a combination of low-quality links, high-quality links, and mostly middling links. There was a really great paper where someone did a backlink profile of a few really, really highly linked pages on Wikipedia. And what they found out is Wikipedia, as you might expect, it's the internet's encyclopedia. It has one of the biggest backlink profiles of any website on the internet. And the average DA, domain authority, of a linking page to Wikipedia was around 30 out of 100. So when you have a really large organic link profile, it's not going to be the highest quality. You know, it's not going to be all 90 DA sites. It's not all New York Times and Huffington Post. It's a lot of low-level blogs, low-level websites. And yeah, there'll be some little spammy guys in there too. They're unavoidable. Something like 78% of all emails that are sent today are spam emails. So we're hanging around in the 22% range of emails that you actually want to read. Doesn't stop people from using email, nor does it necessarily stop your website if you're getting some less than desirable links. It doesn't necessarily immediately stop you from ranking. And no, I don't think the fact that Penguin is part of Google's live algorithm, live crawl, I don't think it's going to change that. It's about balance. It's not, these aren't absolute rules. Google is as interested in providing good human services as your website should be. And if you're doing that, you have to collect quite a few really, really ugly links before Google's going to start thinking that you're trying to game the system. It sounds a little too good to be true, but a lot of the time, if your intentions are pure and your approach to link building is logical and helpful, you're probably going to be okay. So we generally don't find it's worth our time to do real extensive link pruning campaigns for our clients. The question you're answering now, is that where no follow links come in? Oh gosh, no follow links. All right, I should qualify everything that I might say about no follow links. It's a contentious area in the SEO world. A lot of different people have a lot of different opinions. So everything that comes up in a discussion of no follow links comes with a grain of salt. As far as having a bad backlink profile, no, that's not where no-follow links come from, because those aren't your links, right? They're links to your website, not links on your website. So you could certainly ask those webmasters to make them no-follow, and that might help a little bit, but that's not really what the purpose of no-follow links are. That's a whole other technical area. I got all kinds of questions recently over the whole Penguin algorithm rollout. One of the ones that comes up the most is, are no-follow links worth less than follow links? I love and hate this question because we ask it ourselves, and we're constantly trying to reevaluate the answer. At the moment, the general rule of thumb answer is yes, no-follow links are worth less than live links, unmodified links. That doesn't mean you don't want them. That doesn't mean they have no value, especially because a no-follow link can still send traffic. And the Google algorithm and Google itself are getting much, much, much more sophisticated at understanding how people behave on your website once they click through to it. So having no-follow links in your link profile, not a bad thing at all. Nothing to worry about whatsoever. Asking for a link as part of a link building campaign and earning a no-follow link, not a loss, not a waste of time. Ideal? No, not necessarily, but certainly not something that we're going to browbeat ourselves about and say, oh, well, that's no good at all. It is good. It doesn't provide the same service that a regular link does, but I feel like we marginalize no-follow links sometimes when we talk about SEO. That link exists for a reason, right? Links are the architecture of the World Wide Web. Every link matters to some extent. The fact that it is no-follow changes how it serves your rank in Google's eyes to an extent that's constantly changing. But if we want to talk about relative value, that's getting really nuanced and real nitpicky, and I don't consider it a particularly valuable use of time. You're going to get some no-follow links. You're going to want some no-follow links. And as far as on your own website with your own web development, you're probably going to have some no-follow links on there too, and that's a whole other conversation. I'm not sure if this has been asked. What would you say is the most important aspect of, or the best way to establish relationships with bloggers and content publishers for looking to build links through content outreach? We're just starting or have nothing established yet. I mean, that's the thrust of this whole thing is kind of be who you are, be curious, go on Twitter and be a part of these conversations. I can't tell you, I don't have a medical background. I went to school for something completely non-medical, and yet we have a lot of healthcare clients at Page One Power who I'm able to serve because I ask questions, I talk to people. Everything might be a linking opportunity, but even if it's not, it's still valuable if it leads to a conversation, if it leads to a connection, a follow on Twitter, a like on Facebook, me learning more about the healthcare world that I haven't studied or worked in professionally. I've been invited to join Facebook groups and Twitter discussions, even webinars and national conferences, purely on the strength of my relationships with people that I've established both through social media and through my link building outreach. If you want to establish a relationship with a blogger, first thing you got to do is read their blog. What are they talking about? Why do you want a relationship with them? If you can answer those questions for yourself, outreaching them is a very natural extension of that. If you read things that you're passionate about or that make you want to ask questions, or better yet, if you read something that you disagree with and you want to propose a counterpoint of view, that's a great basis for an outreach to a blogger. A lot of bloggers, especially those who don't have particularly thin skins, they like to be contradicted because that's a conversation. It shows engagement. So If you're just starting out, get engaged, ask questions, contradict people, be controversial. This is the stuff that the internet is made of, right? There's lots of fussy, opinionated people out there. If you can be one in a respectful and intelligent way, you're going to start relationships. I can't even tell you the number of links I've built just applying that principle of, I read something and I thought I might amend the point of view or contradict the point of view. And I outreach and I say, this is what I want to do. There's another point of view here. I get links that way, and I get relationships that way. And I come back to these bloggers and these websites again and again, and the conversation's never over. The other thing I would say is follow the news. And Twitter, again, is a great way to do that. You might also create news alerts on Google to make sure that you're staying abreast of what is happening in this industry. Shoes, light bulbs, cars, whatever. You're connected to the wider world. You know, if there's a rubber tree shortage, you're going to have to use different materials for shoe soles or something. There's always a connection to the news, no matter what your industry is. And once you find the newsmakers in your industry, whether it's healthcare or anything else, you can very quickly find out how you're connected to the wider world of that industry. And if you can do that and stay on top of that, you know, keep logging into Twitter, set up some alerts, read the news, and try to answer the question, how do I fit into this narrative? How do I fit into this occurrence, this story, this event? You're relevant. You have a service that you can provide. You have questions that you can answer, you uniquely, your company, your blog, your brand. And that's what link building is all about, is finding those connections and cementing them by building the hyperlinks. Like I said, like Carl Sagan said, if you want to make apple pie from scratch, first you must invent the universe. If you want to build hyperlinks, first you must understand the conceptual links, build the conceptual links, and it's all gravy from there. I saw a question a minute ago that I didn't get around to answering. I want to come back to it. What about a product that's less fashionable, or even a conversation starter, for example, light bulbs, when there's no linkable content? It doesn't matter if it seems fashionable right out of the gate, because if it's not something that you're already interested in, if it's not already in your wheelhouse, you're going to have to learn about it and find out what makes it fashionable. Off the top of my head, I can tell you, for many, many people, light bulbs are the start of a conversation about energy conservation and sustainability, and if you want to get really controversial, climate change. Light bulbs are one of the easiest, lowest cost ways that people have found to talk about being sustainable. So you can't even tell me that light bulbs aren't a conversation starter or an interesting industry to be in, because I'm pretty sure if you watched the presidential debate the other night, they talked about climate change. By extension, they're talking about light bulbs. It's not a big leap to make. If you can talk about light bulbs, then you're part of that conversation and you're immediately relevant. And all of a sudden, your products, those are linkable content. Those product pages, that is linkable content, because you're going to be talking about light bulbs and the construction and the science and the energy. It's all relevant. Everything, if you get to a high enough level, everything is connected. So there is no industry or product or website or client that you can't make relevant by going through this conceptual link building process. Aside from building great content, what would be the best approach for thin content sites looking to earn merit-based links? Obviously, yes, building great content is my number one suggestion and my number one strategy. Failing that, as websites often do, and some of our clients do, and they don't want to change that, you dig deep into the industry. You find out where are the lists. There's lots of lists that you can be a part of. Lists of people just like you who are in this industry, light bulb makers or auto repair. People want guides. If you're a local business, they want a guide that says, where do I go to solve this problem? There's blogs and websites that answer that question. So even without having great content, whatever your industry is, there's going to be lists relevant to your industry that you belong on organically right out of the box. So it's possible. It's a little bit less lucrative. It's harder to capitalize on, but it can be done. If you want to do a more content link building campaign and not just focus on lists and resource link building, as we call it, there's still opportunities there. We'd have to get a little bit more specific to pinpoint what those opportunities are. But again, it comes back down to building the conceptual links. When you know to whom you are relevant and to what industry and to what conversation and to what news item, even if you're thin content, you can still build those links by just joining those conversations. I know I'm getting repetitive at this point, but it's what I do every day. That's the core of my approach to link building. So whatever your situation is, we can apply it to that. It's universal.
Well, everybody, thank you for hanging out with us today. Norm, big thanks to you. I appreciate your time and joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always love talking shop. And again, if I didn't get to a question or you come up with more questions watching the recording after the fact, please email us. Reach out on Twitter. We love to chat with you folks.
Yep, our content team, they are the same people that write articles for publications all over the web, as well as our Linkable blog. They manage our Twitter accounts. So you are tweeting to the people who write for us. And if you've got a specific question that you want to go to our link building floor, to one of our link builders, we can forward that as well. Fantastic participation. Thank you all for the questions. And to stay up to date on what's coming next, follow us on Twitter and subscribe to the Linkable newsletter on pageonepower.com. And look for the email coming out tomorrow that'll have your link to the recording of this webinar, or subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll see it pop up later today.
Thanks, folks.
Bye, everyone.